3:47 a.m. 40 artillery systems, 880 rockets, 38 kilometers to Seoul, 90 seconds flight time. One miscalculation that changed everything. For decades, North Korea's artillery threat kept Seoul hostage. 8,000 tubes aimed at the capital, conventional weapons creating nuclear-level deterrence, sea of fire threats that froze diplomacy, prevented military options, protected the regime. But on March 23rd, when Pyongyang moved its newest systems to the DMZ and activated targeting radars, they triggered a response they never anticipated. Because South Korea and the United States had spent 15 years building something North Korea didn't know existed. A counter-battery network so advanced, so coordinated, so precise that it could detect, track, and destroy every North Korean artillery position before second salvo fires. When North Korea demonstrated their artillery capability that morning, they accidentally revealed their locations. And what happened in the next 18 minutes proved that technology beats numbers, that precision defeats mass, and that Seoul's artillery nightmare has an answer. The Korean Demilitarized Zone. 250 kilometers long, 4 kilometers wide, the most heavily armed border on Earth. On the northern side, North Korea has positioned approximately 8,000 artillery pieces, howitzers, multiple rocket launchers, self-propelled guns. Most are Soviet-era systems from the 1960s and 70s. M1978, Koksan 170mm guns with 60-kilometer range. BM-21 Grad rocket launchers, older systems but in massive numbers and all within range of Seoul. For 70 years, this artillery concentration created unique strategic problem. Seoul sits just 38 kilometers from the DMZ, closer than any other major capital to hostile border. 25 million people in metropolitan area. Government centers, economic infrastructure, international businesses, residential neighborhoods, all within range of North Korean guns. Military planners estimated that in the first hours of conflict, North Korean artillery could fire 500,000 rounds into Seoul. Casualties could reach hundreds of thousands, even with air superiority, even with precision strikes, even with complete military dominance. South Korea couldn't prevent massive civilian casualties in opening minutes of war. This reality shaped every strategic calculation. North Korea leveraged Seoul's vulnerability for diplomatic pressure, economic concessions, regime survival. Whenever international community discussed military options, Pyongyang reminded everyone, Seoul is 38 kilometers away. Whenever sanctions tightened, North Korea threatened artillery response. The threat was crude but effective. Ancient artillery systems creating modern strategic paralysis. But starting in 2008, South Korea and the United States began developing counter-solution. Not publicized, not announced, built quietly over 15 years. The Counter Battery Analysis System, integration of American AN/T, PQ-53 radar, South Korean surveillance systems, real-time data fusion, and precision strike capability. The concept was revolutionary. Detect North Korean artillery the instant it fires, calculate exact position, transmit coordinates to friendly artillery and aircraft, destroy the position before it can fire again. Speed, precision, automation, technology defeating mass. The system required multiple components working perfectly. Ground-based radars to track incoming shells and backtrack trajectory. Surveillance drones providing continuous monitoring. Satellites watching for movement. Artillery units with GPS-guided munitions ready to fire within seconds. Aircraft on strip alert carrying precision bombs. Command centers fusing all data in real time. And most critically, speed. North Korean artillery could fire, displace to new position, fire again. The counter-battery system had to be faster. By March 2024, the system was operational but never publicly tested. North Korea didn't know it existed. And then Pyongyang made critical mistake. On March 20th, North Korean military began unusual activity. Satellite surveillance detected multiple artillery systems moving south toward DMZ, not the old Soviet systems. New equipment. KN-09 300mm multiple rocket launchers, North Korea's most advanced system. Range, 200 kilometers. Accuracy, GPS guided. Warhead, 190 kilograms high explosive. These weren't defensive weapons positioned in depth. These were offensive systems designed to reach deep into South Korea. At 11 p.m. on March 22nd, U.S. reconnaissance satellites detected final movements. 40 North Korean launchers taking firing positions along the DMZ. 32 240mm systems, 8 KN-09 300mm systems, all positioned for maximum Seoul coverage, all in hardened positions, protected by camouflage, dug into mountainsides. At 2:30 a.m. on March 23rd, North Korean fire control radars activated. The systems were preparing to demonstrate capability. At 3:15 a.m., South Korean military went to highest alert. ROKUS Combined Forces Command activated the counter-battery analysis system for first time in full operational mode. Every radar energized, every drone airborne, every artillery battery loaded with GPS-guided munitions, every F-15K and F-16 fighter on 5-minute alert. The entire network waiting. At 3:47 a.m., North Korea activated all 40 launchers simultaneously. Fire control radars sweeping, targeting systems locking coordinates, launchers elevated to firing position. They didn't fire. This was demonstration, show of force. Message to Seoul: we can devastate your capital in 90 seconds. You cannot stop us. You live at our mercy. But the moment those radars activated, everything changed. South Korean AN/TPQ 53 counter-battery radars instantly detected emissions. The radars don't need artillery to fire. They detect targeting radars, command signals, even launcher movement. 40 North Korean systems lighting up their electronics simultaneously created perfect targeting picture. Every position identified, exact coordinates calculated, GPS locations transmitted to strike assets. At 3:48 a.m., South Korean K-9 Thunder, self-propelled howitzers received firing coordinates. Automated fire control systems calculated ballistic solutions in seconds. K-9S carry K-307 GPS guided artillery rounds, 155mm shells with precision guidance, circular error probable 10 meters. At 3:49 a.m., orders transmitted from Combined Forces Command: engage all designated targets, fire for effect, eliminate North Korean artillery threat. At 3:50 a.m., 120 South Korean K-9 howitzers opened fire, simultaneous salvo, GPS-guided rounds arcing north toward DMZ. Flight time, 90 seconds. Each North Korean position targeted by 3 precision rounds, 360 shells inbound to 40 targets. Simultaneously, 12 South Korean F-15K fighters launched from Daegu Air Base, each aircraft carrying 4 JDAM precision-guided bombs. Target coordinates already programmed. The fighters climbed to 20,000 feet, released weapons from 40 kilometers distance, never entering North Korean airspace. 48 JDAMs falling toward artillery positions. At 3:51 a.m., North Korean positions detected incoming fire. Shells screaming in from the south. Crews ran for bunkers. Abandoned launchers sought cover. Artillery officers screaming orders to return fire, but systems weren't loaded, weren't ready. This was supposed to be demonstration, not combat. At 3:52 a.m., the first GPS-guided artillery rounds impacted. Precision strikes directly on launcher positions. North Korean 240mm systems destroyed in place. Explosions, secondary detonations from rocket ammunition, camouflage netting catching fire, hardened positions collapsed by direct hits. At 3:53 a.m., JDAMs arrived, 500-pound GPS-guided bombs striking within meters of target coordinates. North Korean KN-09 systems obliterated, command vehicles destroyed, Fire control radars shattered, mountainside positions collapsing in avalanches of rock and debris. By 3:55 a.m., all 40 North Korean artillery positions were destroyed or disabled. 8 minutes from radar activation to total elimination. 0 North Korean rounds fired in return. The demonstration of force became demonstration of vulnerability. But the counter-battery operation wasn't finished. At 3:56 a.m., US RQ-4 Global Hawk surveillance drone transmitted new data. 50 additional North Korean artillery positions detected 20 kilometers north of DMZ. Older systems, M1978 Koksan guns, prepared as reinforcements. South Korean commanders made immediate decision: eliminate the reinforcements before they can move forward. At 3:58 a.m., 8 U.S. Army ATACMS missiles launched from mobile launchers near Seoul. Army Tactical Missile System, 300 kilometers range, GPS-guided, 500-pound warhead. Flight time to targets, 4 minutes, each missile programmed for specific artillery position. At 4:02 a.m., ATACMS impacts destroyed 8 North Korean artillery command posts coordinating the reinforcement positions. At 4:03 a.m., 24 more South Korean F-15K fighters arrived over targets, systematic destruction of remaining artillery, GPS-guided bombs, precision strikes, overwhelming firepower. North Korean crews abandoned positions, fled into mountains. Artillery pieces left burning. By 4:05 a.m., 90 North Korean artillery positions eliminated, 40 frontline systems destroyed in first 8 minutes, 50 reinforcement positions neutralized in next 7 minutes. Total operation time, 18 minutes from first radar detection to complete elimination of immediate artillery threat. At 4:10 a.m., South Korean president received briefing at Blue House Emergency Command Center. Military assessment: counter-battery analysis system performed beyond expectations. 0 friendly casualties. 0 North Korean rounds fired at Seoul. Entire North Korean demonstration force destroyed before they could execute their show of force. At 4:15 a.m., U.S. Forces Korea commander transmitted message to Pentagon. Counter-battery operation successful. North Korean artillery threat along DMZ significantly degraded. System validation complete. Seoul artillery threat substantially reduced. But the strategic implications went far beyond one tactical success. At 5 a.m., North Korean military command in Pyongyang held emergency meeting. How did South Korea detect positions? How did they respond so quickly? How did they achieve such precision? The artillery threat was North Korea's ultimate insurance policy, and in 18 minutes, it proved vulnerable to technology they didn't possess. At 6 a.m., Chinese military intelligence in Beijing analyzed satellite imagery of the strikes. The precision stunned Chinese analysts. Every North Korean position hit with multiple munitions, no wasted fire, no collateral damage, just surgical elimination of designated targets. China's own artillery-centric military doctrine suddenly looked outdated. At 7 a.m., Russian military observers in Vladivostok reviewed the engagement data. The integration of radar detection, automated fire control, GPS-guided munitions, and real-time coordination represented technological advancement. Russia struggled to match. If South Korea could eliminate North Korean artillery this efficiently, what did that mean for Russian artillery doctrine? At 8 a.m., South Korean government issued carefully worded statement. ROK. Military conducted defensive counter-battery exercise in response to North Korean provocative artillery movements near DMZ. All actions taken in self-defense. No violation of armistice agreement. South Korea remains committed to peace, but will defend against any threat to Seoul and South Korean citizens. North Korea went silent. No official statement, no propaganda, no threats. For 48 hours, complete radio silence from Pyongyang. The regime that built its survival on artillery threat just watched that threat systematically dismantled. On March 25th, North Korea finally responded. State media claimed DPRK military conducted routine artillery exercise. Imperialist South Korean forces overreacted with unnecessary military actions. DPRK, maintains overwhelming artillery superiority and capability to turn Seoul into a sea of fire at any moment. But satellite imagery told different story. Destroyed launchers still smoking, burned out positions visible from space, remaining North Korean artillery pulling back from DMZ, moving north, increasing distance from border. The strategic shift was immediate and measurable. Within 1 week, North Korean artillery positions within 50 kilometers of DMZ decreased by 40%. Systems moved to deeper positions, farther from Seoul, reducing immediate threat. Within 2 weeks, North Korean military began constructing additional hardened positions in depth, acknowledging that forward positions were now vulnerable. But more significant was psychological impact. For 70 years, North Korea's artillery created strategic certainty. Seoul cannot be defended, South Korea must negotiate, military options are impossible. March 23rd shattered that certainty. Seoul can be defended, technology provides answers, artillery threat has counter. This changed military balance fundamentally. US and South Korean military planners had always calculated that war would begin with catastrophic artillery barrage on Seoul, hundreds of thousands of casualties in first hours. Now, if North Korea attempted artillery attack, counter-battery systems would eliminate positions before second salvo. Still dangerous, still deadly, but no longer apocalyptic. The shift affected diplomacy immediately. In previous negotiations, North Korean officials would reference artillery threat whenever discussions turned unfavorable. Implicit reminder: Seoul is 38 kilometers away. After March 23rd, that implicit threat lost power. South Korean negotiators knew their military had answer. North Korean officials knew it too. Regional powers noticed. Japan requested briefing on counter-battery technology. Taiwan inquired about similar systems for artillery threat from mainland China. NATO countries analyzed engagement for lessons applicable to European theater. The demonstration proved that massed artillery, cornerstone of Soviet military doctrine still used by North Korea, China, and Russia, has technological counter. But the system's limitations were equally important. Counter-battery works when North Korean artillery reveals positions by activating radars or firing. It doesn't eliminate artillery hidden in tunnels, not using electronics, remaining dormant. North Korea still maintains thousands of artillery pieces. The March 23rd operation eliminated 90 positions. Thousands remain. The threat decreased but didn't disappear. Moreover, the operation required perfect conditions. Clear weather for drone surveillance, no jamming of GPS signals, functioning radar network, pre-positioned strike assets. In actual war with North Korean electronic warfare, cyber attacks and simultaneous operations across entire front, counter-battery effectiveness might decrease. Yet strategic message was clear. Technology changes battlefield calculus. Precision defeats mass. Speed beats numbers. Seoul's artillery nightmare, while not eliminated, now has partial answer. And that answer only improves as technology advances. Future systems will be faster, more precise, more automated. North Korea's artillery advantage erodes with each technological generation. Today, the counter-battery analysis system remains operational along DMZ, radars continuously scanning, drones persistently monitoring, artillery batteries ready with GPS-guided munitions. The system that proved itself in 18 minutes now provides continuous deterrence. North Korea knows that any artillery activation risks immediate counter-battery strike. The 40 North Korean launchers destroyed on March 23rd were never replaced. Satellite imagery shows positions abandoned, equipment removed, no reconstruction. North Korea learned the lesson. Forward artillery positions near DMZ are vulnerable. Demonstration of capability reveals location. Revealing location means destruction. Seoul residents still live 38 kilometers from North Korea. Artillery threat still exists. But the nightmare scenario, sudden barrage with no defense, no response, only casualties, has changed. Technology provides detection, precision provides response, speed provides protection. Not perfect, not guaranteed, but fundamentally different from 70 years of helpless vulnerability. 347 M40, North Korean artillery systems activated targeting radars, prepared to demonstrate capability, intended to remind Seoul of its vulnerability. 4:05 a.m. 18 minutes later, all 40 systems destroyed, reinforcements eliminated, artillery threat degraded, 0 North Korean rounds fired, complete tactical success, strategic calculation permanently altered. This is the DMZ. This is Seoul's artillery defense. This is what happens when North Korea's conventional threat meets South Korea's technological answer. The regime that survived on artillery intimidation learned that old weapons face new counters, that demonstrating capability reveals vulnerability, that Seoul's nightmare has begun to fade, not because the threat disappeared, but because precision, speed, and technology built a shield, imperfect but real, and improving every day.